Hi, everyone. Welcome to Yale College Voices, where we explore the journeys, ideas, and experiences of our staff that shape the Yale community. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm your host, Darice Corey. And today we're sitting down with someone whose work helps students bridge their passions with purpose. So today I'm welcoming Stanley Willard Jr., MSEd. So Stanley, I'm so happy you could be with me today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Stanley, I'm just going to read your bio and then we'll just have a chat.
Of course.
Awesome. So Stanley Willard Jr., MSEd, joined the Yale Office of Career Strategy in September 2024. So in this role, Stanley focuses on building employer relations and identifying employment opportunities for students interested in common good and creative careers. Stanley brings a wealth of experience from his role as the pre-business career advisor at Connecticut College. In this position, Stanley was instrumental in guiding students on their paths to careers in business, including fields such as finance, real estate, marketing, and human resources. His work involved personalized one-on-one advising, teaching multiple sections of a career preparation course, and orchestrating events in collaboration with employer and alumni partners. With over 7 years of experience in higher education, Stanley is passionate about helping college students.
Thank you so much. It's a
evolve
pleasure to
into
be here. I
bright
appreciate
young
the invitation.
professionals. His journey before Connecticut College includes more than 5 years in college athletics across several institutions where he specialized in marketing and honed his leadership and student engagement skills. Outside the office, Stanley enjoys working out in the gym, exploring different restaurants, and enjoying a cup of coffee in the morning. So I always see you when when I'm walking in. So,
Yes.
So yeah, again, welcome, Stanley, and I'm so happy to have you join me today. And as you know, when I saw your post on LinkedIn that celebrating your first year here at Yale, I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to invite you, onto the podcast so that our listeners can get to know you. And I'm just interested in hearing about your journey and your story. So, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Like you mentioned that you're not from Connecticut. No. So you're from
I'm from New York, Brooklyn, New York specifically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. That was an interesting experience, I would say, in reflection, because I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with New York, and it's associated with the big city feel, and it's a desired destination for a lot of people. And personally, I feel like I grew up a little more introverted, quiet, reserved, shy, and, it's interesting because I feel like in a way I wasn't really a fit in New York naturally, but I'm blessed to have that being someone that grew up in that space, because it essentially forced me to find my voice, my way of leadership, and find my own way in a way that's more natural to me, because I realized I didn't really resonate so much, but that's still home. So how do you adapt and find your way? So I think that shaped a lot of who I am and where I am today.
Oh, that's so interesting. And I'm glad you brought up that you're an introvert, because I can imagine how you must help students who have similar, characteristics. So how does that kind of feed into your work?
Yeah, that's a great, I think that's made me translate into career services quite seamlessly. And I would tell my students oftentimes that I feel like the introverted aspect of me is what actually helped me become better at networking and engaging in these spaces, because it's not something that came naturally. It's something I had to actively work about, be specific in my actions and how I would interact with people. So because of that, I feel like I gained ways in order to do it with still being who I am. And I think that's something I always try to express to my students, is there's ways to navigate professional landscapes and be out and trying to make a name for yourself or build your brand, but still not lose sight of who you are and try to be something you're not. So being introverted really made me cautious about my presence, and that's something I would try to translate onto students and get very particular about things like networking. And I would tell my students all the time, like, I think, oh, how do I network, or how do I reach out to alumni? And I would go into this whole spiel because I didn't feel like it would do it any justice to just give a one sentence response about what networking is, because networking is so broad. And ultimately I just started like, it's just building relationships. I would break it down and then build from there, and ultimately try to gain an understanding of what they're trying to accomplish and how they can go about achieving that goal in a very genuine and respectful and yet professional way.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting because I didn't know that about you, you know, coming into this. And when you mentioned that, like when I think back to my my own college years, or even, you know, we were talking about starting the podcast, and I didn't intend to host this this thing, because I'm also an introvert, and it's work, right? It's like you have to sort of force yourself to, but then it becomes, you know, once you've done it over and over, sometimes it's easier.
Of course.
But yeah, it's like, you know, trying to explain that to students, that the networking aspect is something I wish I did years ago, because I didn't realize what an impact it could have on your career.
It's such a huge impact. I'm literally here today through networking.
Really?
And it's interesting. Another thing I would tell students, particularly in my previous role when I was doing career advising, you know, investment banking, management consulting, those are fields that have some technical aspects to it. And students would be so consumed in knowing the technicals. And yes, of course, there's importance to understanding the technical aspects of a specific given career path. However, they would underestimate the impact of just being able to form relationships with people, because in a lot of careers, a lot of it is interacting as part of a team, meeting with people internally, externally, spend a lot of time, emails, messengers, and we spend so much of our time communicating with other people. So of course there's technical aspects to what we do. However, we can't overstate the importance of just being able to familiarize and build relationships, particularly in a landscape of AI being, you know, thrown around more and more, and how it's interweaving itself into our everyday lives and all that we do, and everything that we're a part of. We have to question, is this AI? Is this real? I still think there's a big part and importance of just having this interpersonal connections and being able to guide and weave in those experiences. Yeah,
that's so true, because you find that, you know, we're behind a screen for so long that you know, some struggle just having, like you said, just having maybe a one-on-one conversation directly or in person versus, you know, behind a screen or behind a keyboard. So yeah, you know, before I jump to all the, you know, the work that you do here at Yale, I'd love to hear more about your story. Like what first inspired you to pursue a career in education and student success?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I go back to, so my connection to Connecticut, you remember you asked me if I'm from Connecticut, like before we started, if I'm from Connecticut. No, I'm not from Connecticut, but I went to Wesleyan University. Got it. That is my introduction to the state of Connecticut. And there I was recruited there to play football. So I played football for my first 2 years. And then decided to stop at the beginning of my sophomore year because of concussions, you know, and this is right on the cusp of the time where concussions came to the forefront of a lot of articles and buzz and media. So it was like a lot of things were known about it, but it was starting to really take off at that point. And I had to make that decision of, okay, am I going to continue to risk you know, my brain and the health, or is this a good stopping point? And I just ultimately decided that, you know, school was more important, and I really want to focus in on doing well. Wesleyan is you know, I hold dear to my heart. I had a fantastic experience there. And when I made that decision, I realized how much of my identity was ingrained into being a student athlete, and between lifts and practices and games and travels, et cetera, like for so many years, that was who I was. And I quickly realized that I had a transitionary period of really rediscovering who I was and what I was really passionate about, or what I want to do long term. Because even if I continued to play sports, like eventually it would end. And I would still have to answer the question of what it is I want to do or who I was. And around that time, I was kind of flustered and figuring things out. And it was someone suggested that a good friend of mine suggested, hey, why don't you go to the career office and speak to Persephone and who's a career advisor there at the time, and you see how that goes. So that's what I did. And she was phenomenal in helping me weave through my interests, my passions, the opportunities that were available for me.
Yeah.
And I would end up going off starting a career in college athletics. I was still very passionate about sports. I was okay with not playing, but I still wanted to find ways to keep that a part of my life, and found that happy medium of working within sports. And I specifically worked in marketing. So I did a lot of events and was the one kind of operating like at a game when you see the big screen and all the events that happen, I was the one kind of operating all of those things. So it was a great experience. But as I continued to advance, I realized that it just wasn't resonating with me anymore. And it felt like something was missing. And I thought about the things that did resonate with me. Like, what did I like? What did I enjoy? Yeah. And I realized that students naturally enjoyed meeting with me. Like, I realized that at one role I was doing a lot of resume reviews, and students were coming to me to look at their grad school essays and asking for advice. And I said, I really like that. And the pandemic came around, you know, and it kind of was a natural pausing point for a lot of people. And I was very fortunate that I was able to use that to really reflect. And I decided to hit pause on the whole college athletics thing, and refigure out what I want to do. And I said, you know what, let me look into career advising. So I would end up calling Persephone, and we had a conversation, and one thing led to another, and I mentioned her name specifically because she would be the one that eventually hired me at Connecticut College. Oh, wow. So she's the executive director of the Hale Center for Career Development at Connecticut College. And we go back to networking. Serendipitously, an opportunity opened up, and she gave me my first opportunity in career services. Oh,
that's so amazing. I love that story. And it's so true, right? Like you built a relationship over time, and obviously that influenced her decision, right, to hire you.
She said those words almost verbatim.
Really?
I remember reaching out to hey, not sure if you remember me, but like we kept in contact over the span between when I graduated and that moment. And she said, of course I remember you. So we got on the phone call, and that was like my first informational interview. And then it was off and running. And it just reminded me of what we talked about, reminded me of the experiences I had with my student athletes that I would work with, and that really lit a fire. And I remember having other conversations as I was leading up to the point of getting to where I am, where it's like, oh, you're very passionate about this. So it was like I found that spark again, and it was fantastic to feel. Oh, that's so amazing! I love that story, and it's so true. Like keeping in touch with people, like you said, it doesn't have to be a daily, conversation, but you have those connections and you make an impression, and somehow it stays in that person's mind, and then for all it could be 10 years later, and it kind of comes full circle. Exactly. So that's so awesome. When you connect with students, like how did that experience or how does it influence how you connect with students now? Like you said, you enjoy this work. So like how do you primarily work with athletes, or do you work with all students, or Certainly. Do you find that athletes sort of gravitate towards you in terms of career advice, or how does that work? That's a great question. So in my current role, which I know we'll get into, I don't meet with students as much anymore. Okay. I have found organic ways, like I'm a first-year advisor for Benjamin Franklin College. Oh, cool. So nice. Things like that, I found natural, organic ways, but unfortunately it's not a main focal point of my role anymore. But going back to when I did do that on a regular basis, I did tend to meet with a lot of student athletes, but I think that aligned more so with the industries I worked with. There was a correlation between the student athletes and banking, finance. It's just one of those interesting things that I noticed that, the student athletes tend to also pursue career paths that, were very competitive and very fast paced. I did think that anecdotally, there seemed to be a correlation there. But I was never formally trained per se on how to be an advisor, but I leaned a lot into lived experiences. So something else that I did in the past was martial arts, which I hope to get back into again a little more regularly. But there was a point where I was training regularly and I would teach children's classes. So that was my introduction into teaching.
Yeah.
So especially with children and how quickly their focus tends to wane.
Right.
I feel like when you develop that patience and composure in those situations, I feel like, if I could do that, I could definitely teach college age students.
Right.
But, I also learned that just being an active listener was so vital. I think that's where I would start, because sometimes, young professionals, they have an idea of what they're looking for, but when we really get into the conversation, we realize there's other things that maybe need to be addressed first, or the issue that they think is an issue isn't necessarily an issue. So it really gives me a great guiding point as to where the conversation should go. So I think being an active listener and really getting understanding of not just what they're interested in, but also what their questions or concerns are, would typically help guide me to where they needed to go. And really being actively open to saying, hey, let's follow up. And I would even say, we're not going to solve the world's problems in one 30-minute meeting. It's just not going to happen. And saying career development, professional growth, these things take time. And as young professionals, you're still trying to figure out what it is you even want to do, what you like, what you dislike. So understanding that, be patient with this process, but be diligent, be engaged, be proactive, ask questions, right? Be uncertain. I tell students, if there's any time you're going to be uncertain or ask all these questions, do it here in this space, because this is the time to kind of really explore and dive a little deeper to gain your confidence, so that when you go out there, talk to alum, talk to employers, you're a little more confident and invigorated and understanding why you're pursuing something.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great point. Using their sessions with career services to experiment even, or like you said, answering questions that, or asking questions and answering questions that, you may be uncertain about asking in an actual interview, or that's a great point. I'm curious, what, in addition to Persephone, who hired you, were there any other mentors or pivotal moments that kind of guided your career journey?
Certainly, yeah. I had another mentor, Dr. Rodman King. He was at Center College, which is an institution I worked at quite a few years ago.
Really?
And that was actually a position. It was interesting. That was a position that was formed through a grant with the NCAA. Oh, wow. And so it was a grant-funded position for 2 years. And part of the process he was involved in, he helped write the grant. And he said basically all he asked for was to be part of the interview process when they brought candidates on campus. And he was pivotal in helping me guide through that experience, because that was in Kentucky. And as I mentioned, I'm from New York.
Oh, wow.
And I was always interested in being in other places, but that was a culture shock. It was very different. I had a great experience, but it was very different. Yeah. And he helped me navigate that. And he pretty much, his wisdom was fascinating. And I felt like when I would go to him to inquire about something, it's almost like he knew what I was going to talk to him about without knowing.
Really?
And as I got to know him more, he never said this deliberately, but I do feel like part of it was he's walked in my shoes before. He's kind of had similar experiences, and he's transcended past that point. Yeah. So he always had, that lived experience of going through navigating these unfamiliar places and finding a way to establish yourself and getting comfortable and being successful. Wow. And I like to mention him as well, because I always go back to that time as a point where it could have been a breaking point for me.
Oh, wow.
Of teetering between is this for me or not? And he kept me on the right track. And I would also say, again, serendipitously, talk about relationships. I don't know how this happened, but he ended up taking a role at Connecticut College right after I started Connecticut College as well. So we ended up serendipitously being right back, working together.
Wow.
So that was just, I was in shock. And I remember seeing the announcement and said, hey, I think we have something to talk about. And we caught it from there. And it was just so cool. These, happy coincidences. But he's someone to this day that I attribute a lot of my success and advancement and just, sticking with the process to, perseverance to him and helping me guide the obstacles and stick with it and having just an understanding that there one day, like, it does get better in the sense of, like, you find your way and you find your goal, your purpose, and everything that you encounter, the ups and the downs, it makes sense.
Yeah. And it kind of like shapes and molds you, right? It's like you know, the ups and downs, even though we prefer not to go through the downs, right? But it's like, that kind of shapes who you are. And
so true.
Like you said, it influences so that now you are that person who kind of understands a student's path and before they even think that you know, right? So that's amazing. And I love how, you know, that's really powerful because I think, you know, I love the way that you talk about, you know, helping students evolve into young professionals and you know, kind of pivoting into your work now. You said that you're not really interacting directly with students all the time, but, you know, can you tell us a bit more about Common Good and creative careers? Like what is that all about? And, you know, what is your work?
Yeah, that's fascinating. So the Common Good and Creative Careers is essentially the arm of the Office of Career Strategy that focuses on careers that aren't like investment banking and finance and consulting. And I think a big part of that is helping students who are more interested in social impact and being creative and artistic find a space. Because I will say, working on the other side of being in more finance related and consulting related fields, their recruiting practices are a lot more aggressive and they're very more upfront and regimented. And I think the misconception in a way is that that's all we advertise or that's all that's available. And that's not the case, you know, and so working with the Common Good and Creative Careers is an opportunity to shed light on some of the smaller organizations that are doing fantastic work. So, you know, you have arts, entertainment, think tanks, government, publishing, education, nonprofits, and the list goes on, right? And it's so many organizations that are doing fantastic work. And we have some bigger organizations in our portfolio of relationships, but then we have some very great local organizations, the smaller organizations who are doing fantastic work. But when it comes to engaging and finding out how to connect them to students, I'm working directly with the CEO or I'm working directly with the executive director, right? Because there is no recruiting team. There is no designated individual. There's no HR team, right? So it's a little bit of a different focus and approach. So a lot of my work is how do I get those organizations to the forefront of our students' attention who are looking for those types of opportunities and navigating those spaces. And so, and I would say, like, I have a great team. So I'm the liaison to the team from the employee relations side, but the Common Good and Creative Career team as a whole is a delight to work with, and they're doing amazing work. And they help my work. And I think we talked quite a bit about my advising, but on the employee relations side, like, I'm talking to the organizations, but I bring the lens as someone who works a lot with students to that. So if an organization is looking to brand themselves on campus, I feel like I have some of that foresight of, okay, if you're looking to get student attention, here are some ways to do it. And working with the Common Good and Creative Careers team informs me because they're still actively engaging with students. And a lot of what they tell me helps inform my work and how I engage with employers. Oh,
that's amazing. And I love that, you know, you're targeting, I guess, smaller, you know, businesses and companies that, you know, maybe students may not have thought of in the first place. And I think that's amazing because you know, in so many ways, I've had other guests here and I always say, isn't it kind of, you know, it blows me away that you're basically influencing the leader, you know, the next leaders, right, of our future and how you're contributing to that, right? Like you're contributing to them becoming people who are running, like you said, it may not be these giant companies, but small businesses that, you know, contribute to local economy and do all the, you know, and to me, that's amazing.
That's how I view it. I view it as I'm still working on behalf of students. And the challenge that I put on myself is how do I introduce organizations doing work that would be interesting to students that they wouldn't think of. Because I feel like when I was working directly with students, it was the career exploration landscape of here are the different types of opportunities that you could explore at different companies, because this company has this type of a department that does this work that you probably wouldn't have thought of or associated with that organization.
Right.
So now I'm on the forefront of, hey, these are the organizations that are doing the work with energy sustainability or any type of social impact that you're interested in. They're doing this work and trying to bring that to the forefront so that students can associate and expand their mindset. Because to that point, like that could be the difference between one of our, bright young students here finding that opportunity or not finding that opportunity, right? So I don't like to put the pressure on myself per se in that way, but I view it in the lens of like, working with an organization who maybe hasn't had a big presence here yet, that could be that opportunity that some student takes advantage of and goes on and does fantastic things to change the world ultimately.
Right, exactly. That's so amazing. So I'm curious, as you were sharing that, and I can see your excitement and passion for this kind of work. And so I'm curious because we didn't touch on it when we first started our conversation, but thinking about, when you think about yourself, whether it was before college or maybe even earlier on in your childhood, did you ever imagine that this is the kind of work you would be doing, or what, the young version of Stanley, like what, do you think that you envision yourself doing this kind of work, or
no,
really?
No, not at all. Not at all. The young Stanley, the kid, he quiet, reserved, as I mentioned, maybe a little naive, which is fine as a child, but again, I like sports and I played video games and I did martial arts and I played chess. So I was a very active, engaged kid, but I that's what I did. I like that. I like to have fun. And I guess I didn't necessarily, if I had any vision of what I would be doing for a very brief moment was engineering, because my dad is an engineer, electrician. My grandfather, his father is an electrician, right? So I kind of thought that would be a natural path for me. So I thought when I went to college that I would pursue some type of engineering. And then I quickly realized that was not for me.
Really?
So I really learned a lot on the fly.
Yeah.
And I think I had pivotal moments in my life that really influenced the decision I am where I am today. And what I've learned about career services, I don't really think anyone says, hey, I'm going to work in career services.
Right.
I think you kind of have to have certain experiences that shape your passion to want to help young students or anybody to find their way. And I think that's what influenced me, because I realized how kind of lost and, just kind of all over the place I was kind of going into college. And once I realized that I had to really figure out a lot of things that I didn't have figured out, that's when I felt that pressure. And now I'm in this seat, it's like, I want to help another young professional who might have similar pressures understand that it is okay, because I think that's what I had. I was very fortunate that I had someone to say, listen, you are totally okay. You are not too late. It's totally fine. Your situation is actually very normal and reasonable. So it's okay. Let's navigate this though. And I would like to have that impact on students, at first through the advising, now actually, hey, here's some fantastic opportunities. So if you're interested in this thing that you might think is niche, it's actually maybe not as niche as you think, and it exists in other areas that you didn't really realize it existed.
Wow. Yeah, I love that, because I can only imagine, like you said, in your own situation or just in general, for students, how overwhelming that may feel. Like, oh my gosh, I'm a junior and I have no idea what I want to be doing or what I will be doing once I graduate. And suddenly you start feeling like, like, what have I done? What have I done with my time, or, all of these things, and you start worrying. So I love that, you could be that resource for students. So, and you brought up something, interesting in terms of, thinking that you have sort of a niche, but that it's more common than they may think. And it made me think about students who who may feel sort of torn between like their passion and then like some sort of practicality in terms of the career they choose. So how do you help them find that balance, like between doing what they love, but also, building some sort of, stability or, sustainable career path?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a case by case basis, but typically depending on the student and individual, I try to make sure they understand that you don't necessarily have to choose.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost, you don't have to choose. Not only do you not have to choose, but it's okay if there's a focus on one more so than the other. Let's say like you have interest in like marketing, an interest in like local conservation or something like that, right? It's like, okay, you don't have to start off in marketing within natural conservation. You could start off doing something in marketing and use your accomplishments and your skills to then help build a network towards that space, right? Like in terms of a long-term growth and pattern. So like you don't necessarily have to choose. And for instance, okay, like let's say you have a great internship in marketing, but you want to start a student group with that kind of like locally here in New Haven that does work with local nonprofits to help, conserve certain areas, right? Like that's something that's a great builder for your resume and that you can utilize moving forward, right? So it's really understanding ultimately like getting the skills are important and there's so many different ways to express your passions, but understand like you don't necessarily have to choose and don't feel like if you're starting off one direction that then ultimately like you're not going to make it to where you want to be. I think that was a common thing that, young professionals that I speak with feel, that pressure of like, oh, it has to be this. This is my vision. This is plan
and
A.
Then you have to stay that
and
course.
It has to be like, no, that's okay. Like I tell 99.999% of the times, like your first role is going to have no impact on the long-term growth and vision. And so oftentimes, and now that I'm at a point in my life where I have some very accomplished people in my network and my friend groups who have eventually found their way to where it is they want to be. And the career services person that I am, I like to kind of look at that journey and realize that when we were in college or like that's what they wanted and this is not how they started off. But now here we are 5-10 years later and they're thriving. And so understanding like, it's a process and it's okay if it doesn't look exactly how you want to do, as long as you're learning, continuing to practice and put time into your passions, gaining your skills, building your network, right? These are very regimented things and it doesn't sound exciting sometimes, but it's tried and true. And if you stay the course, you will get to that point. But just keep going and keep doing things that excite you and energizes you. And ultimately, things do fall into place.
They do. And I love that you brought that up because it's, when I think of my younger self, I guess I did assume or, naively assume that people just had a, straight direct line or trajectory in terms of their careers. And even just, doing this podcast, it's like everyone has had, their career journey kind of goes like this and just realizing that it's okay. Like, you may change courses or you may think you're interested in one thing and then all of a sudden it's like, no, I discovered this new thing that I really have a passion for. And
odds are you will pivot. You'll pivot multiple times, odds are. And Janine said it, I know it was a previous guest, our director in Office of Career Strategy and over fellowships. I've said it a lot, careers are not linear. Life isn't linear. Right? That's just the broader scope of things. Like that's just not how it is. And I overall encourage anyone who is looking to find their way or feel a little lost, don't have such tunnel vision on, again, plan A, leave room for the happy accidents. I have a colleague at Connecticut College that leave room for happenstance, leave room for the happy accidents that come along the way, because if you're so siloed and focused on the thing right in front of you, you miss the things in your periphery. And those are the things that can ultimately have the impact where you look back in 20 years like, because I took that slight turn, a different direction, here's how the rest of my life blossomed from that. And you have to leave space for that. And I think part of that is just trying different things and not being afraid of failure. I think that's another thing that I would impart on to anyone really. It's that's where growth happens.
Right.
That's where you figure out what you like, what you don't like. Right? That's where it really forces you to look in the mirror and figure out how do you move forward. And like if everything's going smoothly, you don't typically question what could be done better because it's working, right? But if being afraid of failure, not trying different things, not getting outside of your comfort zone, that's when you tend to have these like questions of like, okay, where do I go next? Or is this really what I want? The passion's not there. But if you have those situations that make you pause and question and think more introspectively and more broadly, I think that's when we typically start to find what it is we're actually destined to do or more fitting to do in the long run.
Oh, that's so amazing. Because even as you were sharing that, it made me think of, I mean, it applies for students, but it applies mid-career, advanced career. And it's so true. Like when you get locked into, oh, this is what I want to do, or this is the promotion I want to get, or, when you're so focused on that goal and like you said, you miss opportunities along the way that may not be like these giant, promotions or, opportunities, but they're like, I like to call it like a, flavor along the way, like it's like experience, that changes you or it could take you, like you said, it could take you in some other direction. And it's, I think for folks who are later on in their careers, you forget that, right? Like you forget that, again, like everything you just shared, that you share with students in terms of their interests and, doing things that they love versus, building a stable career and things like that. Like we forget, even as we get older, it's like, okay, we don't have to be so locked into this direct line, or straight line of a career path. Yeah.
And I think that's what really, like, we mentioned earlier, like, I just hit my 1-year anniversary here. I think that's something.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much. And awesome. It's been a fantastic year. The team, Office of Career Strategy, just meeting people outside of the office. Like, I've always felt welcome from day one, and awesome. And I think that's something that's resonated with me. And sitting down with my supervisor, she said, "Oh, it feels like you've been here for a lot longer, but not in a bad way, but just in the sense of like." Everything has felt so natural.
Yeah, like part of the family. Kind of thing.
Exactly. And they've made me feel that way from day one.
That's awesome.
Here, just like there's a lot happening here that, that is really exciting and that I'm learning about. And then even the shift out, outside of doing the advising was something that, was I don't say a risk for me, but I think in my growth and development, I understand that to continue to advance and to continue to open up doors, I have to acquire different opportunities, skills, experiences, and understanding that like, yes, I'm like, it's very evident that I like working with students, but I'm still working on behalf of students.
Right,
like that's not different. That's still, everything I do is still for the betterment and the uplifting and growth of students. Like that hasn't changed. Yeah. So it's just the framework and how it exists looks a little different.
Right.
And I think for me now, I view it as, okay, I've done the advising. I still advise. I'm doing employee relations now. I'm talking to organizations and speaking with recruiters and HR professionals. And now I'm learning that end of it even more. So I think that just enhances my skill set and and honestly my passion in career services now. I'm looking at it slightly differently and getting a different viewpoint, a different lens. So it's like it's just made me more passionate, more excited, more just like overall just way more like like I'm so happy that I'm getting to see a more holistic view of everything. Wow. And again, just being here at this thing, like there's also like so many fantastic partners. Like I have fantastic partners at the Jackson School of Management. Like even that aspect of it has been so invigorating. So it's been a fantastic year here, and it's really it was one of those things that like I wasn't sure, of course, because it's like at the time I was like, I wasn't thinking about completely shifting what I was doing in career services, but it felt right and it made sense to me in the moment. And I think so far, thinking about it a year in, it's like, like this was the best decision for me, because I've just felt like I've grown so much as a professional, and I'm just so much more excited about. There's so much to do still, you know, that's the exciting part. Like there's still so much to accomplish in my role. It's like, there's still a lot of growth, and like, that's the exciting part. So.
That's great. Cause that's so important, and also a sort of a lesson to share too, with students, is that, it may take time to find that job that you really love, but it's like, once you find it, it's amazing, right? It's like, wow, I feel energized getting up to go to work every day, and I actually love my job, or and I like the people I work with, and it it's such a difference as opposed to just finding, again, like being stuck on that sort of straight line, career path. And for me too, it's like, it takes some bumps along the way, but once you find it, it's like, this is awesome, and
oh yeah, no, definitely. Like, I think that's what I was working in college, like, that's what I was subscribing to. Like, you go from this thing to this thing to this thing, you go from this institution to that institution to that institution, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But it did not resonate with me. And I felt that, like, that was one of those instances where I had to trust my instincts a little bit, and like, no, that's not the path. If I keep going down the path, I'll find success with it. It'll be fine. Everything will be great. But will I be fulfilled? And that's something I learned about myself. I am passion driven, in that I need to feel passionate about the work that I'm doing. And if I don't, like, there are individuals I feel like that I've interacted with, like, that are fine with like, hey, I come to work, this is work, I do the work, and then I go home. Like, I think my dad is one of those people who, I think he liked his job, but I don't know, like, his passion, like we mentioned earlier, I do martial arts. I got a lot of that from him. That's his passion, or one of his passions. Like, so he would work and support his family, but then afterwards he would get his passion. And that's, I think from that, I took a lot away from that. Like, work doesn't have to be your passion, but I have to be passionate about my work.
Yeah. Like, for you, that's what keeps you going, right? It fuels you.
It does.
Because I find that, I've been fortunate. Like, I've always enjoyed some aspect of technology. So I've always worked in IT pretty much my entire career, except for my little, path that kind of took some left turns and right turns and circles, and, and I mean, I did work that had nothing to do with IT. There was a point where I had to, I had to pivot and just do it, take a job just to sustain, take care of my family. But, I love that you, mentioned, student success stories, and I'm just curious, is there one particular story that kind of sticks with you, or maybe you think about it and it inspires you, or maybe it could have been a positive story, or maybe even an experience that just kind of influences your work, as when you get up every day?
That's a good question. I think when in the landscape of career services, there's a student who I worked very closely with who was on the investment banking track at Connecticut College. And he did a lot of the right things. He was involved. He was part of the investment club. He was involved with the career office. He was we had career fellows that were students that did some advising and worked with students and did drop-in hours, which was fantastic. And he did that, very involved, did a lot of the networking, and found the big internship in investment banking that goes into your junior summer, and that's supposed to lead to a return offer. And he got the internship, didn't get the return offer, unfortunately. And typically, that's kind of when a lot of young professionals who are interested in that space kind of derail and have to take a different path. And he very discouraged, but him and I developed a rapport, and I kept being very encouraging to him and just like, listen, like, this is what's meant for you. You'll get there. Just keep trying. Like, do what you need to do in the meantime. Get experience. He found a job and go to graduate in college within the world of finance, and he kept pushing and kept pushing. He kept applying, kept networking, kept going for interviews, and eventually he called me like very excited, and he found a role within investment banking,
awesome.
and he was like very, very excited about it. And it's interesting because we talk quite regularly, and I'm just realizing I haven't heard from him in a while.
Really?
But I think that tracks based on what he's doing now.
That's awesome.
But it was so fantastic to see his diligence, and I think it was one of those success stories in that, like, it didn't look pretty.
Right.
It wasn't, like this overly like. It wasn't one of those like stories where it's like a lot of people might subscribe to in the sense of like, oh, that's what I want to subscribe for. Like, that doesn't sound super glorious, but more so that like the perseverance and just understanding like if you do stay the course, that it can work for you.
Right.
And, and one thing I typically tell this to seniors is, the things that you're worried about right now, in 5 years, you're going to wish those are the problems you had, meaning like the things you're so fixated on right now in the grand scheme of things, when you really start to establish yourself, you're going to laugh at like how minuscule, how minute, not significant at all, right? Because then life takes over, things happen, priorities change, right? And I say 5 years just because that was a manageable amount of time, but 10 years, right? Like I've graduated back in 2013 from college. Like what I'm concerned about now is a lot dramatically different than it was 12 years ago, right? So like I said, even 5 years, because that's something I think they could grasp. Like, no, like, so basically, like, don't take this too serious. Be diligent, right? Go for it. But in the end, like, life has a way of self-correcting or self-guiding in a way that you kind of get back into place if that's what it's meant for you to be. So that was just a story that, that trend, like it started off in college for that student, but then into their professional world experiences, it took them a little more time, but they got to what they wanted to be. And I think they're thriving now, and it's really cool to see.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that story because it's so true. It's, it's almost like you have your heart set on this job or, type of job that you really want, after college. Because I remember I even for me, when I was in college and once I graduated, I was like, okay, I want to get an IT job like immediately. I want to be doing the things. And my first job was like a customer service job, it was on one of those call centers, and I hated it. I hated it, but it was, it eventually led to doing IT work, but it took a while. Like it felt like, and I remember, feeling so disappointed, but like you said, it's that, perseverance to just keep, learn along the way, but, keep trying,
Exactly.
and be open to other opportunities too. Like like I said, I took jobs that had nothing to do with what I thought I would be doing. But they helped me along the way in terms of just learning other aspects of business and, that type of thing. And it makes me think of, even just recently, my son, my son is 22 and, he was going through some job searching and he had his heart set on this one kind of, same thing as that I did, he wanted this one kind of job. And the problem is I'm like, that's great, but there aren't many posted, so you kind of, maybe apply for some other stuff, and he didn't like it, but, but he applied, instead of putting out one application, he put he put out maybe 10, and I told him the chances are if you put out feelers for 10 jobs, you'll probably get a response versus that one job.
Certainly. It's a numbers game. It is a numbers game. But I also say a great example of, like trying to find their way. It's like, okay, I think that not actually having that path, direct path, makes you more marketable. It makes you more desired in a lot of ways. Like I just had a information session with a company who emphasized that like they've hired people from Starbucks. They've hired people from so many miscellaneous places because it's not necessarily about where you are, but the ability to articulate the skills and experiences you've got along the way, right? Because in organizations, they're especially in earlier career type of opportunities, they're looking for specific skills and experiences, soft skills that are often, grouped together as. That's what they're looking for. Yeah. Now, if you get it within the realm of that industry, great. But if you don't, I think it makes you, if you don't, but then you can articulate how you have it and how it's important to that organization. Right. I think that helps you actually stand out a little bit more. I tell students
you make that connection.
Exactly. Like if you can, it shows understanding. Yeah. Right. Because if you have 1,000 applicants and they're all copy and paste very similar, going back to AI and a lot of young professionals do utilize some type of AI to help with their resume. Like that's the general chatter and what's happening. But essentially it's making resumes look very similar, which is not too dissimilar how it's always been. But if you have 1,000 resumes and they all look the same, it's hard to stand out from that, right? Whereas if you have, and that's why I'm passionate about the liberal arts, if you have a resume where it's like you did these interesting classes, you took this specific internship that's outside the scope of that industry, but you articulate how those skills and experiences kind of bend into that, then I think it's like, oh, that stands out a little bit more because, all these 999 have this specific experience in that school, but this person, they have a different level of understanding. They have a different background. That's something a little different. And they're articulating how they know they have the skills that we want and how they have it. That's interesting. Right. Let's take a look at this person. And of course, that's oversimplifying the process. But it is something to think about. But there's always that
chance. Yeah. Because like you said, I imagine, like for example, when you mentioned your background in athletics, and being able to take that and articulate, team working with teams or leadership or, motivation, right? Like motivating teams to accomplish something. And I think that sometimes people, and like I said, whether you're a young graduate or, mid-career, you forget that all of these different experiences still lead to like who you are. Because like I said, I hated that job in customer service, but it helped me understand how to work with, and it was a horrible job because I had irate people all day long, and
I can imagine.
But you had to deal with it, and work through.
Okay, you can deal with, very aggressive people. You can deal with, on in the moment, tight situations, like adaptability. How do you solve problem solve, critical thinking? Like these are all different skills that.
Wow, I have to go back and. But it's so true. Like literally, as we were talking about it, just making that connection. Like wow, because often people say, "Oh, you're so calm all the time," but I think it may have come from that experience of just trying to de-escalate and, get, an irate person from screaming, literally, screaming at you on the phone to, de-escalate a little bit and calm the situation as much as possible.
That's amazing. And then how that has applied throughout the rest of your career. And in the key critical situation, it's like, if you didn't have that experience specifically, you may not have been able to navigate other experiences as you have. And again, I think about other experiences like that in my career of because I had this experience, doing things now are like second nature because I had that experience, even though on the surface that had nothing to do with where I'm at now, but I needed that to build to get to where I am today.
Yeah. So it's an important reminder, I imagine for students. So wow, you helped me today. This is so awesome. I'm curious about, as you share about your experience here at Yale, like your first year. So what has that been like? Like just I remember. So I've been I've been at Yale for 18 years, and But I remember coming into Yale, how it felt overwhelming, to be honest, trying to learn this whole like ecosystem and, all the Yale acronyms and
all the acronyms. Oh my
right.
gosh.
And just learning the units, right.
Yes.
And how we all, connect to each other in different ways. And so I'm curious, what was your experience like coming into Yale?
I would say I'm glad you phrased it that way, because it's been pretty similar for me. First and foremost, fantastic.
Right.
Like as I was mentioning earlier, like the team I'm a part of, OCS, is fantastic. Fellowships as well. We share a suite. They're all wonderful people. Like I felt welcome from day one.
Awesome.
And I think that was, I don't say surprising, but I'm a more of a proponent of the smaller liberal arts school, and I didn't truly understand how much of a liberal arts school Yale was until I got here. I'm like, oh, it is a liberal arts school, right? Like there's a lot of parts that exist outside of Yale College,
Right.
and I think that's what I'm navigating, but it wasn't as insurmountable as I initially thought. And it kind of goes back to, again, we talk about the networking, and very serendipitous situations. So another cool story for you. So as part of my role at Connecticut College, I taught a career preparation course. And when I was offered this role, it was the beginning of the academic year, because I started here September 16th, 2024. So I just started the academic year over there. So not the best timing, but these things happen and we navigate. So the class was 6 weeks. And the way the timing was working out was I could teach like the first 3. And Persephone, my supervisor, said, hey, basically she would be willing to take over the class or find ways to find coverage for her. I was like, no, that's a lot to put on someone else while I'm still here. I was like, while I'm still here, I would still like to be a part of it if possible. All that to say. So again, I'm going to classes, I wasn't sure if I was going to say something at the very beginning. Oh, hey, everybody, great to meet you. By the way, I'm leaving. Considering these are mainly first year students anyway. So it's I don't know if that's the best introduction to college. I mean, it's a life lesson, but things happen. But I wasn't sure. So I said, you know what? I'm going to tell them in week 2. So I'm not going to say week 1. But what I did do is whoever was going to take over, they came to their first class and introduced themselves as well. Basically, I just said, hey, I'm going to teach the first 3 weeks, and my colleague will teach the last 3.
Right.
So I didn't say anything first week about me. Week 2, I said, well, just so you know, next week will be my last class, as I mentioned, but I'm also leaving the institution and I'm pursuing another role. So I did that. And the last class I taught there's a student that came in and, sat down making small talk before everyone else came in. It's like, oh, so where are you going? I said, oh, I'm going to Yale and I'm going to work in the career office. She said, oh my gosh, my mom works at Yale in the career office. I was like, no way. So this student, her mother is Elizabeth Gill, who works at the Jackson School.
Oh, interesting.
So I got to meet Elizabeth quite early, and Kristen, who also works at the Jackson School, someone I work closely with. So that was a connection I made, and I made a connection at SOM pretty quickly through my network. So all that to say, I found ways to utilize my network to meet people early. And I'm so glad I did, because these are some of my partners in terms of if they have an opportunity that they want to share to other schools, that helps. And then vice versa. We all collaborate and talk strategies and talk about things that are happening. So,
that's so great.
So I'm still a lot of navigating to do, because even us connecting has been a very recent thing. Right. So there's still, but I'm a year in, so they're still pretty new, but it's been amazing, and I think I am excited about the opportunities to continue to expand my reach in terms of collaboration opportunities and just seeing all that Yale has to offer, because there's a lot, and I'm excited that coming from smaller institutions where I think I have a strong affinity for them and they're fantastic. It is a nice feeling to also feel I still have some of that small school feel, but then there's still a lot of opportunity internally to still spread out and make connections and collaborate. So it's been a fantastic year.
That's so awesome. And I love to hear that because it's something I wish I did early on when I first started here at Yale. Because again, when I finally was like, okay, I got the tech job. Now it's I just kind of had my head down and did my job, and I wish I did more networking early on, because that has definitely I don't know. It's changed my career here at Yale, but it's also, it's added like a lot of wonderful things to it. And, that's what brings me to work every day.
Yeah.
Like I love networking, meeting new people, working with my colleagues, and, we're all working towards this mission, right? For Yale to, to help students be successful. But it's like, I wish, I just wish I connected with my colleagues more early on. And it's a challenge, right? Like you said, it's because that's not something that came easy to me either. Especially early on, I was super shy. Like I was so quiet. I just did my work and that was it. And, I just wish I kind of stepped outside of my shell a little earlier.
Sure. No, I'll say this too. I just add I can't do my job if I don't have connection. I just can't. Because even the ways and the systems I've had to utilize to set up advertising opportunities, let's say we work with the organization, set up an information session or some type of session on campus and have recruiters, alumni and stuff like that. I have to lean on my network here to help spread the information as much as possible, because that's just something I can't do. Like I could put it on our systems, but I still need assistance in getting eyes to that. Because some students, depending on the organization, will find it. Like there's just some that speak for themselves and that's great. But as I, in my role, try to expand that scope some, it needs a little more convincing and a little bit more of like, okay, I need like the cultural houses to help, the FROCOs. Like I could continue to expand student groups. I continue to expand my list of who you ask for assistance to help promote these opportunities. So like I just can't do it without actually having systems and networks here, because it just wouldn't effectively get out to students. So it's like I've had to make it a practice in what I do.
Yes, that's so true. So wow, we've been talking already for an hour, and it's
Time
like,
flies.
I know, right? So before we end, though, I'd love to hear more about the stuff that you love doing. Like how do you, how do you unwind, or, what's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
Yeah, well, I'm still a very avid sports fan. That has not changed. For a long time, I did the martial arts. I think with them, I've moved around quite a bit, so that just made it hard to keep up with. But that's definitely something I look to get back into. But it's definitely something that has been a big part of my upbringing, and I think it's really helpful with, honestly, like mental health, like the focus, determination, the tranquil aspects of it just really help kind of keep me grounded. But other than that, like I do like trying different restaurants. I like going for long walks. I like going to the gym still. Anything. I'm really big on work-life balance in terms of really finding ways to balance the stressors of the everyday work life and then also taking care of myself, right?
Definitely.
I've definitely become more in tune with my body in terms of like, okay, it's time to ease up a little bit. Like as I've progressed in life, it's like, I think, when you're a student athlete and when you're really so ingrained with having that environments where it's like, oh, you got to push forward, push past this, push past the pain, push past the tired and fatigue and doing all that. Like, there's a lesson there somewhere.
Yes.
But the practicality, like you do need to find ways to, so like, I think, the being active helps with that. But then there's sometimes my body just feels a little beat up and it's like, sometimes I just need to like meditate or watch something calming or read or do something else. So overall, I'm a pretty still reserved individual, and I appreciate my alone time or time to myself, but hang out with family and friends and things like that. But I try to be open as well and see what life has to offer and what opportunities come about. But overall, just staying active and eating good food. That's kind of where I'll center my interest around that.
Do you have a favorite restaurant in the area?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No, not yet. I will say, admittedly, like, I've been here for a year, but the first half of the year here, I was commuting from Groton, Connecticut, because I was still living out in the New London area where Connecticut College was. Yeah. So I pretty much was here for work and then I would go back.
And then go back,
So I've, like, the last 4 or 5 months or so, it's been kind of like I moved to Hamden. So now like that's where I'm like, okay, like I want to explore a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that. But ultimately, like it could be sushi, it could be Indian food, Mexican,
Just
anything.
really.
I'm pretty open to it. And I like expanding my palate and trying new things as well.
Oh,
but if you have any recommendations, I will definitely take some.
I know. You would think I'd have recommendations after working here 18 years. I tend to be, I'm such a creature of habit when it comes, and it's really bad because I don't, I'll explore if I'm with a group, but when I'm by myself, it makes no sense. When I'm by myself, I just kind of stick to the same locations and stuff.
I had a funny story where I was walking around here, and I think I had this shirt on, and a tour was getting off the bus. And one of the teachers or the adults said, "Oh my gosh, you work here. Can you help us find like where to find the best pizza and stuff like that?" And I'm so embarrassed. Question. I'm like, I don't know. But it's like of all days, it's like I obviously work here. I have a shirt on.
Funny.
Like it's just like, oh my gosh, I felt so bad. But I was honest, like, listen, I can't help you. I said you can't go wrong.
Yeah,
that's probably not the best advice. But I think they figured it out. However, New Haven's supposed to be like the pizza capital, right? So it's like
I think they won an award recently. Yes.
Like, hypothetically, you shouldn't be able to go wrong here,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I know it. I feel bad too if people, aside from places that I know of just because they're in my travels for meetings or whatever. I'm like, don't ask me about it. I'm not the person to ask.
Yeah,
but
like if it's not down Whitney Avenue, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I probably
exactly.
know it.
Oh, that's so funny. So two things I'll ask you.
Yeah.
One is how do you take your coffee?
Ooh, that's good. I'm dabbling in just doing straight black now.
Oh.
But very minimal cream, minimal sugar. Like I try to keep it very, like I'm at a point where it's like I'm actually trying to enjoy the coffee.
Really?
Like I felt like for a while coffee was the energizer boost. But like if I'm drinking coffee, I kind of want to enjoy the coffee. So I try to limit as much cream and sugar,
Extra
but I'll
stuff.
still do like 1 cream, 1 sugar, something like that. And that would make my dad cringe because he's like put all the cream and all the sugar in it. Because he doesn't like the tartness. It's the tartness. I kind of like the tartness.
Really?
Like that's kind of part of the experience.
I can't do it. My parents were the same. They would just, I always think back to like our road trips and they would just have black coffee in a giant thermos, and I'm like, how do you guys drink that like that? That's so,
gotta enjoy the notes. It's like wine almost. Like,
but then it's like, oh, but maybe I don't like coffee, because I love coffee, but with cream and sugar.
Fair enough. No,
but it's like without it, I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Well, I think having it like black, I think that's when you really realize there are different like grades and like there are levels of like what a good coffee is and how that tastes and what a not so good coffee tastes. Like I think that's when you kind of get into that more. And then it's like, okay, if you introduce a little cream, because that tends to mask it. Right.
It's like, it masks. Yes.
It's like coffee for dummies.
It's more like, do you want coffee with your milk?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So to wrap up, this has been awesome. Just having a chance to get to know you, and if you could share, you shared a lot of different messages for students, as throughout our conversation. But if there's one more message that you would share with students or with colleagues, who maybe they just feel uncertain about next steps in their career or in their journey in general, not just career wise. What would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will kind of start off with what I said, mainly for students, like what I said with my first year advisees, is don't get so caught up on the rat race, don't get so caught up on listen, Yale's obviously we all have a prestigious institution and it's not easy to get in. All the things.
Yes.
But don't get so caught up on the keeping up with the Joneses and like, oh, look at I said, listen, more times than not, like you're not competing with your classmates for opportunities. That's not who you're competing with, right? So don't get so caught up in that. I said, find, like, you're here because you're accomplished academics, and that's fantastic. Don't lose that, but expand your palette, expand your interests. Like, try the things. Like, there's a student group that sounds somewhat interesting, but like, try that, right? I said, ultimately, let's say you get to the point where you're looking for opportunities and say, oh, talk to alumni and things like that. They're not going to ask you, oh, how was that chemistry class? That's not what they're going to ask you about, right? When they're trying to connect with you, they want to know, oh, what residential colleges you live in? Like, oh, is this place still here? Like, they're going to ask you those types of questions. So basically, like, live a little, have, have experiences, because it's going to go by so fast. I said that I tell students, like, there's nothing like these 4 years here. So whether you having a good experience, not having the best experience, if you're here, enjoy it, because there's going to be nothing like it once you leave ever again.
Right.
So enjoy that. Because I said, even though, like, there's an informality around what I'm saying, it's actually going to help you in the long run when you're connecting with people in the professional world. Like, that's what people talk about. Like, when I talk about Wesleyan or talk about other institutions, like, we talk about our experiences there and the things we did, right? And that's what helps us connect, to find some familiarity, right? So that's going to help you so much. And kind of for a more general, both students, young professionals, mid-professionals, is just don't be afraid to fail. I don't necessarily say I look to fail, but I understand in quote unquote failure, that's where growth happens, right? So if everything's going too smoothly, that's fantastic. But it's in those moments where you truly have to lock in and understand what it is and what you have to the calibrate or self-calibration and figure out what's next for you. That's when you really have to think about that. And one last thing I think I would say too is really trying to master the art of self, in that it kind of aligns with some of the things I said before, of just like, if you can really be in tune with who you are, what energizes you, what you don't like, right? It's so important to know what you don't like just as much as it is important to know what you do like, what you're good at, what you're not good at, right? That's what's going to help you so much in your processes, wherever you are. If you can articulate who you are, because that's what's going to help you stand out from everybody else, right? Like, it's cliche, but you are the only you, right? So, but if you are trying to fit a mold of hundreds of others, you're not standing out and being yourself. You're going to have a better chance sticking out and being yourself than trying to fit in with everybody else. So I think that's kind of if you can really fine tune that and be comfortable in your own skin and project that in these opportunities, that's going to resonate a lot more.
Awesome. Well, Stanley, that was so, I think that's a great note to leave off on. I thank you for your insight and just, like I said, getting to know you and why this is your passion. And congratulations for your first year here at Yale. Hopefully one of many, many, many more. It's just been such a pleasure to sit and have a conversation with you.
Likewise, I really appreciate the invitation. And it's again, kind of like the theme almost of just like serendipitous experiences, like to post. I don't post a lot on LinkedIn, but to post, hey, I've made a year, and then for you to contact me, it's like, this is something that's stepping outside of my comfort zone. I haven't done a podcast or anything like that before. I like to find my pockets of influence, if you will, which is why I think like the classroom and the one-on-one teaching was great, because that's my pocket. But part of my growth in my development, right? I'm still very much in the journey of trying to continue to be the best me that I can be. It's like, hey, let's step outside the comfort zone a little bit. And you invited me, and it was like, yes, but then immediately like, ooh, I said yes to that. Hey, committed and you go through with it. But it was fantastic to have this conversation. And again, truly appreciate the invitation. It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I appreciate it too. And I thank you because, I tell everyone this has been sort of, believe it or not, life-changing and career-changing for me, just running this podcast and number one, getting to know my colleagues, but just the connections I've made along the way with my colleagues who have been guests, but also, listeners that, I totally unexpected. I run into people and I'm like, oh, you listen to it? Like, that's so cool, And I thank you so much just for, coming on today and sharing your story. And I look forward to somehow, as you were sharing some of the things that you're doing in career services, I'm like, oh, there are some things I have to talk to you about, in terms of IT that we're trying to work on to
certainly,
connect with students and help them on that journey. Like you said, finding unusual opportunities. So we definitely have to talk.
Continue to connect and work through that. I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to that because I think that sounds really cool. And I'm sure there's a bountiful amount of things that, collaborative opportunities that exist.
Yes. I'm looking forward to that as well. So yes, again, thank you so much, Stanley, for taking some time to sit with me today. Our listeners, you know where to find Stanley now, and now you know what kind of coffee to get him if you see it along the way.
I'm accepting of any coffee you're willing to share, so or treat me to. So
awesome.
Definitely
or food restaurants as well.
Recommendations, please.
Yes.
Like I'm looking forward to being able to say, oh, I know this space, I know this space. So taking all restaurant recommendations as well.
Awesome. All right, so thank you again, and we're going to end on that note. So for our listeners, you know where to find us. We're on all the major platforms: Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple podcasts. So please continue sharing stories. I think that's what just makes, like you said, that's what makes coming to work such a joy is connecting. So. I hope you all connect and connect with Stanley. So
yes, please do.
Awesome.